Hello, one and all, and welcome to Magic in Mind. My name is Maggie Rose Cunningham. I'm your host for this session of Magic in Mind, and I wanted to open by just talking about voice. So, many people who come and train with me, work with me, many people I've met over my lifetime working with professional people, looking at career strategy and leadership, have a huge fear around voice, whether that is going and delivering a presentation or a training, or doing an interview, and persuasion and negotiation, or whether it's singing or chanting or galdra. And I'm a little bit unusual. I might not be alone. Let me know if I'm not alone on this. But I'm a little bit unusual in that I found my singing voice long before I found my speaking voice. And the whole how I found my singing self is a story in its own right. So I'm not going to share it. I'm just going to say it felt like one of those things that was fated. I was incredibly shy as a child, and I just sort of fell into an experience where I needed to sing in front of other people, and I surprised myself in that moment. And from that time on, I really worked with and developed my voice and my singing voice in particular. And the runes really supported me in understanding that I could work with the voice physically. I trained as a singer. I was a wedding singer for a period of time, and working with the breath was very, very important to me. But what the runes taught me was the energetics of sound, and the energetics of sound healing in particular, and moving energy with my voice, which is a very, very different experience. I love singing. Get me on the karaoke floor, can't get me off again. Do I need a drink? No. But working with the voice for the runes, if I go and I hold ceremony, I often either hold ceremony spaces myself, or I might work with other people, and I'll often be the person who's creating that the container, and I will normally do that with the runes, and they support clearing and cleansing, which we're going to be talking about a little bit today, and they support the creation of safe space to work in. And so I've loved working with the voice in song, or in galdra, as it's called. You think about a voice galdra in the northern tradition, working with the runes. But speaking, no, not so much. I remember when I worked for the Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons for a period of time, and one of the things that I had to do was presentations to different groups of people who would come in, and I would, at moment's notice, and they'd be like, oh, there's a group of 20 dentists downstairs. Can you go and do a talk for them on continuing professional development? And the way that I managed to do this, because I found it absolutely petrifying, was to work on the basis that I had a medical condition, and therefore if anyone said anything about the fact that I had gone absolutely bright red in the face and my voice was shaking uncontrollably, that was rude of them. You know, I basically just soldiered through. You know, it took me a long time to get to the point where I am with you now, where I'm chatting away with you and it's all fine. That did not happen easily. That was a work in progress. And what made the real difference for me was partially the rune work and starting to work with whisper and sound and communication. It was partially training as a trainer and really learning about stage presence. But one of the key things for me was finding people who understood that as somebody who channels energy all of the time, when everyone stands and they're all staring at me and I'm about to express something to them, and I know that it's going to be a, what's the word I'm looking for? A channeling of energy is going to occur, that I need to do different things to the things that other people might do. And I realised this when I started to do oracular work. So I did, when I did spoken oracle, suddenly that was like the key, first of the keys for me unlocking, was realising, you know, if I looked at it intentionally and I said, actually what I'm doing is I am channeling oracle, I am speaking on behalf of deity to other people, all of my nerves went instantly. It just disappeared and I was fine, and I remember my words if it was a learned piece. But this has been a layering in slowly over time. So I would love to know in the chat, and I can see there's a couple of people who've arrived. Thank you, because I know we're not meeting at the normal time today because it's bank holiday here in the UK. Whether you have ever had any challenges with voice in terms of singing or speaking or presenting in front of groups. Whether that's something that rings a bell with you, because what we're going to be doing today is going to be working with the rune Ansuz. So Ansuz is the rune, it's known as the rune of communication. We're going to do a little bit of a deep dive into Ansuz, and we're going to be looking at how can we work with Ansuz for releasing through the cycle of the month. So in the context that we've just been talking about, it might be that you did a speech or a presentation and you're still feeling a bit wobbly about it, and it didn't necessarily go the way that you wanted it to, and you're beating yourself up about it, and we can do some release work around that. So as you're coming in and settling in, start to have a think about, just look back over your month and think, what are the things that I would like to be releasing and letting go of, working on the basis that I've already received the learning. I've already received the learning or the growth from this, and everything else that I'm holding on to is probably just baggage at this point. So I'm ready to have received the growth piece. I want to let go of the rest at this point. So we're going to be doing releasing. We're going to be looking and working with the Ansuz rune for healing. And we're going to be looking at the Ansuz rune for building confidence in speaking. So here's the Ansuz rune here. It's the 4th rune in the Elder Futhog. It's a really interesting rune. So the Elder Futhog is the oldest of all of the rune alphabets or Futhogs. And it was one of the runes that split into a number of other runes, particularly in the Anglo-Saxon rune row. And so it has a very large number of rich meanings that we're going to look at, that we can work with as healers in particular. So before we start looking at the practices that I'm going to share with you and doing a little bit of release work that we can use to harness, at the moment we're coming towards the dark moon, so we're doing releasing, but you can use the Ansuz rune at any point that you want to do releasing, but it's really helpful for using at this point in the lunar phase when we are doing this session live. There are, for me, 3 essentials that we need if we want to work with a rune for healing and for seasonal work, which perhaps is more around wholeness. Now, healing might be this idea that there's something wrong that we want to fix in some way, whereas wholeness is that sort of stepping in. How can I be more whole in this moment? How can I be more present? How can I be more fulfilled? How can I be more happy? It's a slightly different take on healing. They come from the same stem word, healing and wholeness, but it's nice to bring in that piece. So, and how can we do that? How can we work with Ansuz rune, but the other runes as well? Works with all of them for seasonal work, as we're doing, working through the wheel of the year and harnessing the energies of the wheel of the year, and for our own personal healing. And I think there are 3 essentials that we need to have in place in order to do that. The first is that you or a guide that you're working with, so you're here with me right now, so I'm your guide, and I'm talking you through how we can work safely and how we can work with the rune, need to have an attunement to the rune. And by that I don't mean I've read a couple of books that have told me like a little bit about what Ansuz means. That's important. Our sage knowledge, you might call this, our knowledge about what the rune means, is part of that attunement process. But I would also bring in the mystic, the exploration of the stories and poems that are associated with the rune, a sort of richer tapestry of meanings that really connect in with our human ability to create narrative and story and to connect the dots together, and to interact with myth as well, and the healing that's present for us through myth. So we have the mystic self needs to become attuned to the rune. The magician needs to become attuned to the rune. So in my view, if you want to go and you want to do healing, particularly if we're going to be doing it with somebody else, we're talking about how you can do that and how you can do that safely at the end, then you want to have worked with your rune to bring about change and transformation in some way. So the realms of magic and healing there can be a little Venn diagram where they sit together, because you can use magical forms in order to bring about transformation that is intended to support healing. So I could make a rune pendant or necklace that I want somebody to wear, that I have charged with what I want them to have. In this instance, it might be confidence in speaking, and you could say, okay, well, that's functioning not just to sort of bring the confidence, but also to release any beliefs or challenges that might be getting in the way. It's a form of healing, or to support, in my case, that channeling of energy that needs to happen so that my whole body doesn't shake when I'm doing channeled stuff, when I'm working energetically. So there's a little bit of a Venn diagram, but we need to have done that. We need to have done at least 1 or 2 things that are working with the rune to bring about intentional change. Then we've got our healer. So we need to have actually attuned to the energy of the rune. We need to have maybe chanted it using Galdra, so our Ansuz, whispering it, chanting it, feeling how it moves through our body. In Awaken, I do guided meditations about feeling each of the runes in the body, you know, where we feel them, how they operate, so that we understand that and we can recognise that. And the seer as well. So doing your readings, drawing your runes every day, seeing how a particular rune will pop up for you in your life, that will sometimes certainly chime with the meanings, with the sage meanings. It could be like, oh, you know, Ansuz has come up today and I am about to do a presentation, or I'm going to, you know, be coming and doing magic in mind or something, and I'm going to work with Ansuz beforehand. But it can also be that other things come up for you that form a personal connection between you and the rune. The things that you experience about the rune that maybe not everybody does, but the way in which they work. So that's the first piece, is that either you or your guide or the person who's doing a healing for you, if you're doing a healing or is leading a ceremony and you're in circle, need to be attuned to the rune that you are working with. Now, the second thing for me, and this is important, is intention. That you need to have an intention for working with your rune. Now, when we go and we start to work with a rune, the intention may simply be, I want to experience the rune. So I'm not doing it for releasing purposes or for healing purposes or for confidence building purposes. I'm doing it so that I can learn the rune. But once you've got to that point, then you want to have an intention. I'm going to explain that why, and we're going to use our lovely assistant here, the Ansuz rune, to explain that. So some healing energies, let's say I can know that there's at least one person on the call at the moment who is a Reiki master, so you will know I'm a trained Reiki master. I don't use my Reiki enough to really claim to be an active Reiki master at the moment, but I'm trained and did all of that. You can call on, you know, particular form of Reiki energy, and then you can ask the Reiki itself to guide your hands where it needs to go. And you might say, when I use Shoku Rei, because I feel like it's a more earthly, perhaps more physical healing that's needed. So there's a certain amount of intention, but apart from that, you are really working on the basis that Reiki is a healing form. That is its primary function. Now, healing is not it's not the primary function, it's not the only function, I'd rather say, of the runes. They work as guides, they support us in our transformation, they support us in manifestation work, magical work, you know, all sorts of different things. And so if we just say, oh yeah, I'm going to send the Ansuz rune towards somebody, there are so many different things that the Ansuz rune might do, and it might not be what you or your client or the people that you're working with necessarily want. You know, the runes do have agendas of their own. They are aligned, I believe, with weird and fate. So I don't think that they would ever do anything that was harmful to somebody, but they might bring them into a healing experience that they don't feel ready for, or their conscious minds don't feel ready for. It might be that energetically they're going, yeah, I'm ready. But I think this is important, and I'm going to come on to this in my third piece. So if we think about intention, with the Ansuz rune, we have the meanings that I've talked about around communication. We have meanings that relate to the mouth, or to the speech of God, or the speech of deity, let's say, or the divine that come through the Ansuz rune, which is why it's really, really helpful for working on voice and confidence and channeling and beautiful things through the rune. It has a meaning of oak tree and a meaning of ash tree, because the runes that came from it, the younger runes that came from it, were almost like split and had their own meanings accrued to them at that point. And you could either say, well, then it sort of flowed back into the Ansuz rune, or you could say, well, actually the Ansuz rune held all of those meanings in it already. So we had the os rune, which is the mouth, or the estuary, or the opening, or the divine utterance. We have the ash rune, or ask rune, which is the ash tree. And we have the arc rune, so the oak tree. And so in the form of the divine utterance, or the mouth, there's quite a wild energy. There is it's a little bit uncontrolled. It's often referred to as the unfetterer. It's the voice of the divine roaring over the oceans and the land. You know, there's a storm energy that can come with Ansuz. It can actually feel very heady if you do a lot of channeling of Ansuz, and you don't draw in that the ash tree and the oak tree, which have different meanings in their own rights, but they have the stability and the rooting which we're going to be working on. So the Ansuz rune holds within it wildness and release and freedom and voice and inspiration and ecstasy, which is often what people know about the Ansuz rune. But it also has structure and order and grounding and rooting and abundance and the fertility of the land to a certain extent as well, all come through. And you can think about this with, often referred to as Odin's rune. When you think about Odin and his different forms, he's the wanderer, the traveller, going out. He's the leader of the wild hunt, but he's also the All-Father, seated upon his throne, creating structure. You might think about this as the difference between an oracle. You know, I was talking about channeling oracle. That comes spontaneously in the moment, which is the divine inspiration of Ansuz, and the shaping of story and narrative and our understanding about the way the world works, which is also the structure of Ansuz, which allows us to function as a society out there in the world, is also done through the word. So the word provides meaning and form and structure. So we need to have an intention when we decide I'm going to work with the Ansuz rune, and like, which facet am I going to work with, and what is it I would like it to do. So I want you to pay attention to that when we get onto our practical pieces. And the final thing that I want to bring in, which isn't so, it's not so important, although you'll know I always do these live because I love to receive people's feedback during the sessions, because I do see these sessions as being a partnership as well as you bring your questions. But for me, the deeper that we move into healing and ritual work and supporting ritual spaces for the others, the more we move into partnership. And this is partnership between me or you and the runes we're working with. So it becomes an iterative process. So you might draw a rune and say, which rune am I supposed to be working with for this particular healing? And you draw the rune, and then you say, okay, now I need to feel in which aspect of that rune that I need to work with. And so there's a partnership. There might be a partnership with the Wheel of the Year. So where are we right now? So I've mentioned that we're at the waning moon phase now. So we're going to be working on the release with Ansuz. And there's also a partnership if you're working with somebody else and what their intentions are and what they want. So we've got attunement to the rune, the intention that you're holding for your ritual or your healing, and the partnership that you have with your runes and with the Wheel of the Year, and if there's anybody else that you're working with, which I see as being the three essentials for working powerfully and safely with the runes. And in this case, we're going to be working with Ansuz for healing and for release work. So let's see what people have said in the chat. So Maggie said, being taken seriously and authority has been an issue for me. My confidence in my own way is something I'm learning. Yes, and this is something that's come up, and I think it comes up for quite a lot of people in this community. I refer to it as edge walking. I have found that most people who are on a spiritual path, not all people, but most people are on a spiritual path, particularly maybe if they're in the Northern Tradition path and they're interested in the Northern Tradition path, will self-identify as being edge walkers, out there seeing the what's needed in society, disagreeing sometimes with what's happening in the centre and the place of control, feeling ourselves as different. You know? And you almost need to be different in order to look in and have a different perspective on what's happening in the centre, whatever that centre is, whether it's an organisation or the town that you live in or the political structure or the cultural norms of your time, tends to be that we feel ourselves as being sort of different or slightly separate from that, which can make it very difficult to then step into that sort of shape shift into that place of influence. We using the magician self is incredibly helpful for that. But yeah, building in that confidence. And that piece that you've said there about being taken seriously, I think is very important. And there are lots of reasons why we might think I'm not going to be taken seriously. And one of the things that Ansuz is spectacularly good at is supporting us in releasing anything that is inside. It's like a belief that we've taken to be true about I won't be taken seriously. Now, sometimes we do maybe need to adapt to the people that we want to influence and negotiate with in order to have that influence and authority with them. But it's a dual thing. It's saying, okay, what needs to happen internally to allow my confidence to come through, and what needs to happen externally so that I can claim that space of authority. And then Suzanne says, I need to make my Ansuz smudge feather. Yes, you do, Suzanne, because I'm looking forward to seeing it. And Suzanne says you definitely have to have intentions behind using Reiki as well. Yeah, I think that you're right, Suzanne. I think it's, for me, I've just found that it's more nuanced with the runes. And that they tend to chat back, maybe more in the mind, because they form meaning. Whereas Reiki for me, and yeah, absolutely feel free to disagree, Reiki for me tends to speak directly to my body. So my body will move where I feel it's needed, in a way that the runes can be a little bit more conversational. That's what I want to say there. Let me know what you think about that, because it's a really interesting piece there, is that what are people's experiences? If you have experiences of working with rune healing and experiences of working with other forms of energy healing, how do they differ for you? Okay, so we've got the 3 essentials. We're going to look at 3 practices today, and we're going to do one in more depth, and then the other 2 I'm going to outline to you, because I think that they're useful for an understanding of the different ways in which we can work with Ansuz, and that we can go right from introducing the rune into your life to support self-healing, through to offering healings for other with the Ansuz rune as a very powerful partner through the healing process. So the 3 that I wanted to work with us are on the release. So I've mentioned the release. We're going to be working with, as I've said, what is it that I need to release right now? And it might be that there are things that have come up for you through the month, or it might be that you've identified things through the discussion that I've been having around voice, maybe visibility, maybe influence, maybe authority, that it would be useful to release and say, I'm ready to step into something new. I'm ready to receive from Ansuz that greater confidence. And we're going to look at that in a moment. We're going to be working with Ansuz as the unfetterer. It's one of the ways in which it's sometimes described as the unfetterer. And with that, we're going to be looking more at beliefs and stories, like specific beliefs and stories that we might have, that we know that we need to release. And there are lots of different processes that you can do with this. So, as a coach, I work with people on the conscious mind. We also do a lot of trance work. We also do energy work around releasing things, but we're going to be looking at how do you work with Ansuz to do that through Galdra, through the use of voice magics. And the final one is I'm going to bring is around confidence in speaking. I'm going to use a little practice which you may well be familiar with, but it works very, very well with Ansuz, and I think that Ansuz adds this little bit of oomph. Okay, so we're going to do we're going to do the unfettering and the Galdra work first, and I'm going to take you've always been the runes for me. And I think this is important, is to recognise that when you think about that 3rd element, about partnership, it doesn't mean that one healing form is right or wrong, or that the way that you experience is the way that everybody else experiences it. It's just what works for me, what works best for me. So for me, I now don't offer Reiki healings during my sessions. I don't do exclusive healing sessions for people. I do transformation work sessions, which will often involve healing work within them. But I would use the runes and shamanic work as my preference, because the runes are my key partners. Whereas for you, so you've got the runes and Reiki as well. And it might be that that's also about you, about your style as a healer, and ability to be in conversation and partnership with all of the healing mediums that you work with. Okay, so with the working with Ansuz as the unfetterer, this is the first healing practice that I was ever taught. Suzanne is saying that I have disappeared for you. Well, that is frustrating. Can you still hear my voice, Suzanne? Can people please let me know if they can't hear me, because that would obviously not be good. So yeah, just give me a shout and let me know. It's come up as a little bit of a blip, but it looks as if it is okay now. So, that's always ironic, isn't it, that the Ansuz rune in communication, you're just about to do your Galdra work, and the internet goes down. Yeah, so someone give me a shout and let me know. Meg, you say you can hear me. Okay, so let's just work on the assumption that if you can't see my video, you can at least hear my voice. Thank you very much. And Kristen is saying working for me again now. Okay, if you missed anything about what I was just saying, I think we're okay. I think we're covered, because I was just saying what we're going to do, but let me know if there's anything key that you missed. Okay, so I was talking about the first practice, and this is the practice that I was first taught about how to work with the Ansuz rune and how we could work with it energetically. And it uses Galdra or chanting. So essentially, what I was taught to do is to connect in with my breath and to connect in with Ansuz as the wind in particular. And to, when I was whispering Ansuz or singing Ansuz, then I would start to connect in with my breath as the wind. And I was taught to do this standing and to close my eyes, all of which are things I would not now teach people to do. And the reason for that is because if you're not used to chanting and breath work, you're going to get out of breath quite quickly and you're going to get quite trancy because you're controlling the breath in a different way than you would normally do. And it's never a good idea, really, to stand with your eyes shut unless you know that you've got something near you that if you sort of wobble a little bit, you can catch yourself. So for me, if you were going to do this work now with your Ansuz rune, so I want to release and I want to do so consciously, I would suggest sitting down first, maybe sitting down cross-legged or sitting down on the earth, remembering that Ansuz contains within it that earth connection as well. So it's not going to disrupt your connection with Ansuz. We don't need to have this really sort of heady sky energy in order to experience the healing functionality of Ansuz. And I think that this practice was taught the way that it was because it was taught in the context of more temple magic, sort of ritual spaces, and less from a healing energetic space. So I would do that practice now lying down, no, sitting down. I wouldn't do it lying down, I'd do it sitting down because you still want to have the strong core. So don't sort of collapse your body and go, you want to sort of up, feel that strength of the spine, feel your lungs opening and releasing. Make sure that you're breathing into the belly. And I would start with the whisper only before you move on to the singing. And you can almost see this as blowing cobwebs away. Some of you will know when we work with the rune bags and I clear the bag and we use the cobwebs meditation. So this is working actually with the body and saying, okay, what is it that needs to be released? You might already have done some journaling work. That's very Ansuz. So you can say, I've done some journaling, I've done some free writing about what is it that I want to release right now. And I'm feeling like really low confidence. I don't think that people are going to listen to me. Get it all out on the paper. And then you can do your breath work. And then really breathe into the belly. And then again. And allow your breath to become the wind and allow it to start to blow away those cobwebs, and really relying on Ansuz, on the nature of Ansuz, that it is the unfetter, that it will do that release process for you. And then when you become more confident and you can experiment, then you can start to bring in chanting or song work, that just to make sure that you're not going too much sort of into, ooh, I'm feeling a bit, ooh, all over the place now. It can be fun, don't get me wrong, it can be fun to practice it, get in with a partner and go crazy on your Ansuz chanting and be like, whoa, we're way out there now, and I was riding with Odin with the wild hunt. It can be very, very cool, but that's a slightly different thing to saying I'm actually just looking to release some stuff from my life right now and I don't need to invoke Odin and all of the wild hunt to come in and do this for me, fun as it is. So that's my first piece for you, is to really practice working with the Galdra and with the voice to support unfettering and release work. Now the second piece is also a breathwork piece, and you may well recognise this, but I use it with Ansuz now, and it works less on the releasing and more on the structure and the order. So I work with it for confidence in speaking, often before I go and speak, because it brings my, focuses my concentration on my breath, and it brings in the grounded, rooted nature of Ansuz. And the reason I started with this is because Ansuz is the 4th rune in the Elder Futhark. And I started doing what's called box breathing, which some of you will know, which is where you breathe in for 4, you hold for 4, you breathe out for 4, you hold for 4, and then you breathe in for 4. And it's like a box because you go in, hold, out, hold, in, hold, out, hold. So it brings more structure to the breath. And I don't use Ansuz as the, I don't try and meld my Galdra with it. I will often do box breathing and then some Ansuz chanting and then some more box breathing as well, to almost say, okay, I want to be in that state of being able to be more confident in my speech and to influence others and to support them in the understanding of what it is that I want to convey. I'll do my box breathing. Then I'll bring in the Ansuz rune to say, is there anything that I need to clear in order to be of better service to the people who I need to speak to? And I would use my Ansuz rune. And then I go back into box breathing again. And I might combine it with some nice power poses as well. So when I got to my box breathing the second time round, I might well stand at that point, but I probably put my hands on my hips, I'd have my feet a little bit apart, I'd have my knees bent, and I'd be like, yeah, you know, and I would feel that rootedness right through my feet, that real grounded connection as I did my box breathing. And I would see that as being an invocation of Ansuz as the fourth rune in the Elder Futhark and as the rune of the breath and the voice and the utterance and of the giving of structure. And it's a really, really lovely way of bringing in confidence and calm at the same time before you do a, what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, a presentation or a training, or you want to go out and you want to influence people. So have a little play with that. And if you already do box breathing, just see how bringing in Ansuz and the power of Ansuz into that practice supports you, and whether it also allows you to attach some slightly more specific intentions, some Ansuz-y intentions to that process. Okay, so now to remind you that at the beginning of the session I invited you to start to think about, is there anything that I would like to release, that I would want to let go of? Now, we've already talked about the working with the Galdra as an unfetter, which is a gentle, largely in the conscious mind. The rune does the work of the unconscious mind for you, so you just work on the assumption that it's going to go that little bit deeper than your conscious mind goes, and you're working with its name. But what we're going to do now is we're going to do more of a visualization, a sort of ceremonial approach. Now, this one again, you can do seated, but make sure that your back is straight and that you're supported and that you can feel those roots. You can do it standing, and many of you will know that most of the work that I do standing. I have a big standing desk in front of me, and I've got a little platform in front of me, like a little wooden handhold essentially, so that if I wobble a little bit, just put my hands there and make sure that I don't fall over while I'm doing it. So you can, I prefer to stand when I'm doing energy work, in the majority of cases, not all cases, but if you're going to do that, do make sure that you are safe when you do so. So you can join with me now if you're here live, or you can do this in the recording, in which case, hello recording people, please do put hashtag replay so they know that you're here. And we're going to do this for releasing for this waning moon, when the energies of the moon are letting go. It's like the well of weird offers its waters to the moon, and it fills the moon over the course of the lunar cycle with Bill and Hyuki, who fill and empty the moon. And we're now in the emptying phase. It's like the waters of this lunar cycle are travelling, they're trickling down the bark of the world tree and they're going down into the roots. And what we're going to be working on is thinking about this as the process of that water going down into the roots, and it continues to nourish and to nurture the world tree as the world tree drinks from the waters of weird. So we don't simply lose everything that has happened from the previous cycle. We continue to draw on it. It offers healing and transformation and evolution. So we can do a little bit of a celebration as well for this. We can say, what are the things that I really want to celebrate, that I know are going to continue to nurture me as the water comes up and I draw on it? And what are the things that I want to release out into the world? And we're going to think about that as the realm of sky, which I've already mentioned Ansuz connects to. Remembering that Ansuz connects to water through its associations with estuaries, and with air through its association with like Odin and the sky gods and the voice. And so we can work with both. So when you are ready, I'm going to invite you to make yourself comfortable. And if you're watching this on the recording, you can pause for a moment. You can stop the video and just have a little bit of a write and go, okay, is there anything that I want to bring intentional presence to around what I would like to release? Now, working on the assumption that I have received everything that I need to, and I want to let go of this now so that it doesn't limit me in the future. And what is it that I want to celebrate and continue to recognize as being part of my life path, my life journey, something that I'm particularly proud of, that I believe is going to continue to nourish me. So you can do that, and then you can come back to this piece. But for those of you who are here with me live, or if you already know what it is that you want to do, or you're happy to trust the Ansuz rune in this meditation to do what it is that you need to do, let's just get ourselves settled now. So either sitting yourself down and trying to make sure that you're in a balanced place. You don't necessarily want to have your legs out sort of one side, or to be wonky, to try and feel as if you're like a tree reaching up to the sky and reaching down with your roots. And if you're standing, just placing your feet hips width apart, and moving your body slightly forward and slightly back and slightly to one side and slightly to the other, just to find your centre of gravity, and just spreading your toes out so that it feels as if they're gripping the earth. This is like your toes are like your little roots now, feeling where the balls of your feet and the backs of the feet meet the floor, meet the ground. Really nice to do this with your shoes off outside if you can as well. And then remembering that the first man and the first woman are said to have been, they're called ash tree, remember the Ansuz rune, and embla, which means elm or vine, it was sometimes thought to mean, were created by the gods. They were created by Odin and his brothers, and they gave them breath and blooming hue and like life force, energy and consciousness, all of these things. But that means that our ancestors were the trees, and I like to believe that our energy bodies still hold that shape of the trees. And so we have our roots, our energetic roots that go down beyond our toes, beyond the soles of our feet, deep down into the earth. So allow your roots to extend down into the earth now. Just feeling as if they know where they need to go. Perhaps there are stones and pebbles or rocks, and some of those roots actually grasp those pebbles or rocks to anchor your tree self more into the ground. Some of them extend down even deeper, down into the warmth now, feeling their way down to that geothermal energy, and connecting with subterranean streams down there, and thinking about Midgard, Middle Earth, where we are, being the centre of the world tree. Perhaps our roots extend down even deeper, beyond the realm of Midgard, all the way down to the wells, Well of Weird, Nimirsbrunn, Fergelmere. Reaching down as far as feels comfortable for you. And feeling that warm energy right now, that energy of the earth coming up into your feet. And as you receive, just taking a moment to connect with the belly, with the bowl of your pelvis there, the space between the hip bones, pelvic bones. And allowing this to be a space where you feel that that celebration, even if you don't know consciously what it is that you want to celebrate from the month that has passed. We're just going to give gratitude now. You have nothing else to give gratitude for. Give gratitude to your body for carrying you through this month. You know, doing what it needed to do, digesting the food that it needed to digest, breathing as well as it has, bringing the oxygen to your blood cells. Just giving thanks for life. And allowing that energy to rise up into the solar plexus, base of the rib cage, feeling it, maybe a little bit of a fizzing energy there now. It's sort of golden, there's a strength to it as well, a protective force as well. And recognising the times when maybe you've stood your ground through the course of the last month, you've said what needed to be said, you've said no when you needed to say no, you've said yes to something even though it felt a little bit, it was a bit nerve-wracking to do that. You have taken intentions and you have held fast to them and supported them in manifesting through this place. And allowing that energy to rise up into the heart centre. Just recognising every time you just felt a little bit of bliss, you know, So we're just looking out in the rain. I had a double rainbow outside my window. I went outside in the rain, went through the front door and looked at the double rainbow. So very life experiences I've had with double rainbows that always mean that I feel very, very blessed when they come forward. So anything like that, anything from the past month that you feel like, oh, it's just that one moment and I just, oh, no, that felt so good. And it's a receiving energy. It's not an intentions energy, it's a receiving energy. And that energy of love and gratitude and wonder and awe and all of those things in the heart. And then rising up into the voice, the place of self-expression. Giving thanks here. Giving thanks for every intention or thought that rose up into this space of self-expression. Even if through the course of the month, not all of those things were expressed. Give thanks for them that they made that journey from that deep belly space into the voice center. Perhaps there were things that you spoke, in which case absolutely celebrate them. But even if you know that the truth, your central truth was inside and maybe it wasn't as expressed as fully as you wanted it to be, it's still there. You know? And we're just going to give permission at this point for that energy center to release all of those unspoken pieces, knowing that if they are important, they will come again. Anything that you regretted speaking, you felt, oh, maybe I didn't voice that as well as I could have done, it didn't work out the way that I wanted to, still giving thanks that you gave it your best. No? That you allowed that energy center to expand. You allowed yourself to speak. And again, just saying to the Ansuz rune, if there's anything that needs to be cleared here, if there's anything that I am still holding on to because I'm afraid that I might do it wrong again or whatever, and working on the basis, like I've said, that we've already received what we need. Your wisdom self, your deepest knowing self has already received what is needed. And therefore we don't have to hold everything in the conscious mind and in the body in order to learn. And also bearing in mind that, all right, it might have felt a bit weird or uncomfortable or something didn't quite go the way you wanted it to, whatever, but maybe, just maybe, someone needed to hear it. And you might not know why. You might not know why you needed to be the person who said the clumsy thing or that made somebody else upset for whatever reason, but it was important for some reason. Just giving yourself permission to think that might be possible. Perhaps sending out an intention in the world that whatever those words were intended for, just let them do their job. And let go of any attachment that you've got that is stopping them from being released fully out into the world, almost as if you're trying to swallow them back in. Just breathing those out. If there's anything there that you're like, oh, I wish I could have swallowed my words. Let's let go of that. Creating a clear space. And then finally, just allowing the head to fill now with that energy as well. And we're not going to pay, we're not going to start paying attention to the thoughts and things. We'll just let that energy rise up from the earth, right into the head. Maybe it's caressing the inside of your skull at this point, or moving around the shells of the ears a little bit. And as it does so, you notice that, yes, there are these like physical edges, but we're all really made up of vibrating atoms all of the time. We are permeable, and we extend beyond the physical skin. Just allowing your energy body now to fill with that expressive energy that's moved from the belly all the way through the centers. Just feeling its way now, as if it's exploring your edges now. Just as we have roots that reach down, we have branches that reach up. Connecting into the stars and the realm of the sky and the inspiration from there. So allowing yourself to extend upwards. Now, upwards and out. It might be that you feel the tips of your fingers almost as being branches that are reaching out at this point. You might want to raise your hands and explore that a little bit. sort of like wave your arms a little bit, wave your hands a little bit, just allowing some movement in. And as you do so, remembering we talked about the cobwebs before, as your hands move, or as you breathe and you're breathing out, and you feel all those branches, they're reaching up all the way into the stars, it's just a gentle rustling. As if you are being very gently moved by a wind. It's not a gale force, it's not a storm force. Just allowing a little bit of movement into your body, remembering that if you're standing, just make sure that you can reach out if you need to, so that you keep your balance going. Starting to move as if you're moving in the breeze. And as you do so, every time you breathe out, you're just releasing the things that you no longer need. Just energy that has become stuck in your physical body and your energy body, that's now ready to depart, to go out into the world, to fulfill its next mission, its next purpose. Just breathing in and breathing out. And breathing in. Breathing out. And as you do so, just allowing yourself to become aware. Maybe it feels like a sound, or maybe it's just that, just imagined. Absolutely fine if it was actually really there. But as you're moving, dew is forming on your branches. Perhaps the night sky is over you now. And that dew's falling, it's very gently just trickling down your branches, so that as you release, there's also droplets of water, droplets of wisdom, of knowing, of learning, of transformation, of bliss, all of those things that you felt inside. It's almost like shimmering on your skin now as they trickle down your body. And they're pooling at your feet, and then they're being absorbed down into the earth. They're joining that flow of energy deep beneath the earth. So that when you breathe in now, and your roots drink deep of the energy of the earth, they are bringing in and drawing in all of those good things that you have experienced through the last month all over again. Yes, you're saying this and more, this and more. That delicious, amazing embodiment dance class that I did, yes, that and more. Double rainbow that I saw over my house, yes, that and more. Beautiful foxglove in my garden, I just couldn't stop looking at that and more. Whatever it is, just held you in that space of, this is what it's like to be alive, this is what I choose, this is what I say yes to. As you breathe in, it's feeling your energy roots and then your body absorbing that water in, knowing that that will continue to happen through the next lunar cycle. And as you breathe out, still just letting that movement come as you release. So we're releasing above. As you breathe out, and then breathing in through the roots. If you want to, you can let your hands support that movement. So you always be like you're very gently gathering the energy, and I'm just bending my knees ever so slightly and then drawing it up as I breathe in. And I'm releasing it out. Remembering to move if you're standing, to keep your knees soft. Never feeling as if you're pushing. You don't need to push any of the energy away. You're allowing that flow of energy almost to move you. And now if you're doing the movements, just going to very slowly start to make them just a little bit smaller. You're just drawing up the energy. Maybe you're just bending your elbows a little bit, putting your hands moving up the body and then releasing out. As if the activity is centering now deep inside. It's still happening, that pulsing energy, that opening to and receiving from beneath, and that releasing out. But it's almost now like a flower opening deep inside the belly and then closing and then opening again and closing. Until this intentional movement, this intentional receiving and release becomes the rhythm of the cells in your body. As the blood flows around your body and offers oxygen and nutrients to each of the cells, they open to receive and then they release back into the bloodstream. There is nothing that you need to do to continue this flow. And centering back into the breath, just letting your arms relax down to the sides. Just feeling those branches now, almost as if they're just very gently again being just drawn inwards inside your energy body. Letting go of that connection with the stars and the sky and just moving back down inside your energy body. And some of them are going and they're becoming that protective layer of your energy body that says, this is me, this is my space, and outside, and still some of it is me, but this is where my boundaries are. Allowing the energy of those branches to hold those boundaries for you. Just noticing the back as well, the back of the spine, and feeling how far your energy body extends outwards at the back. Just knowing that it's covering also the back of the head. And that your body is also drawing the energy in now, as if it's coiling it down your spine and it's coiling down into the belly. And your roots, those deep roots, those roots stay. But that active energy that's being drawn up is just very gently starting to go slower. It's starting to move slower. It's becoming just a trickle, and then maybe just little specks of energy. It's very gently working their way up through your root system as your body needs them, as your spirit needs them. So that you have no need to bring your conscious awareness to that. And just start to move your body. Just flexing your knees, your elbows, wrists, maybe winding your wrists a little bit. If you need to, you might want to put your hands on top of your head for a moment. Just feeling your head, feeling your skull there. Perhaps around the front of the forehead, the jawbone. Putting your hands on your shoulders and giving yourself a hug now. Just giving yourself a lovely hug. Feeling the breath. Just allowing your feet now to wiggle, bringing some movement back into the toes, into the balls of the feet and the heels. And breathing, greeting your human body now. Human body that always contains the energy of Ansuz within it. The flow of water within the body and the rise and the fall of the lungs. It's always there, always present, and always available to you. So if you've enjoyed the exercises today, and if you're thinking, I'd like to be able to do more of this, I'd like to be able to work with the Ansuz rune in different ways, I'd like to be able to work with the other 23 runes, I'd like to know more about how to release with the Ansuz rune, or more about how to draw in that energy, whether it's that wild, untamable energy, or the more ordered, structured, storytelling energy, then you will want to look at the Awaken program and look at joining the Awaken program, which offers all of these pieces that I've talked about. So it offers that attunement. It supports us. We have modules on healing. We have modules on Galdra as well, on supporting your practice. And then if you feel like, actually, for me, I know that I want to become a healing guide or to offer the healing energies of the runes out to others, then after Awaken, I have graduate programs on certifying as a rune healer as well, particularly in developing that partnership approach with the runes too. So I hope that you have enjoyed that with Ansuz. Maggie, I'm glad that you loved it and that it felt incredible. You can certainly use the you can use the box breathing and the whispered Galdra. Give those a try, see how they feel for you, and find out where your own edges are. Where does it now start to feel like, oh, the Ansuz rune feels heady to me, or I'm not quite sure of the meanings. I don't know how the meanings split from the Ansuz rune into all of the baby runes underneath, and how those meanings were created. Then absolutely get in touch. If you're thinking, well, maybe Awakens for me, then just get in touch and ask. I'm always here, open for questions. Enjoy this waning moon. For those of you who are joining me on the live or who are watching this video immediately afterwards, remembering that we can work with Ansuz at any time, and that it has a just multifaceted rune, as are all the runes. They're available for us to work with in such profound ways that are both simple and powerful, whether you are first starting out with them or whether you have been working with them for years.